Hi there. A happy Saturday morning. Today it's Miriam and me. Now we go to a monster without a moral compass. More than 100 women now have come forward after the late former harrods owner, Mohamed Al Fayed, has been accused of sexual abuse and rape.
A barrister representing one of the women said the cases were rapidly evolving and expanding every day.
And one of Al Fayed's alleged victims, who went by the name Natasha, said the billionaire businessman was highly manipulative. Take a listen to what she had to say.
We would be sent to see Al Fayed because he had a job for us to do. It was always more of a friendly chat than actual work. But then these private meetings turned into more. A forced kiss. His hands gripping your face to his lips, or pulling you down on his lap, where his hands were free to explore any part of your body that he wished. These incidents lasted seconds, but the fear instilled left me paralysed. Al Fayed brushed off these moments like they had never happened. But I was always reminded not to mention them to anyone. He would know if I did.
We're now joined by CEO and founder from Freedom from Abuse, Marilyn Hawes. Marilyn, thank you for joining us this morning. This is just the most horrendous story, isn't it? I watched the BBC documentary last night, and it's just the extent and timeline over which the abuse took place is just hard to believe.
It's just yet another slimy toad coming out the woodwork, isn't it? We've had Hugh Edwards and now this. So what did he operate here? He used what I would call, and I do call, the abuser's trinity: power, control, and silence. And he used it in bucket loads. So I've always said, you know, absolute power absolutely corrupts. And he was just omnipotent, wasn't he, operating across harrods? He was the sole person at the top. Because I was thinking yesterday, you know, well, in the BBC, we've had Savile, we've had Rolf Harris, Hugh Edwards, Stuart Hall, but that was the whole organisation. This man controlled through absolute fear. And well done, Natasha and other women. I think they're going to come through in shed loads, quite frankly, because if you think how long he's been operating for, oh, and call me Papa, how repulsive is that? I don't know if he used NDAs to silence them, but he did have oh golly, what control and grip he had over his staff. It's just absolutely awful. I mean, and the impact, as the lawyers have said, the impact of rape, child sexual abuse, sexual assaults is enormous. And some people don't recover. Some people will now have passed away. Some people will have taken their own life. And that is the impact of sexual assault, be you a child or an adult. And I just wonder, because this is going to continue in organizations and big organizations or whatever, where somebody at the top is like a sociopath or a psychopath that has this control and uses these NDAs. Now, I know there's discussions thinking that these NDAs regarding sexual assaults have got to stop, but nothing's happened yet. And while they continue, I don't know whether he used it or not, but he certainly used ultimate fear.
He certainly used, yes, he used power and fear.
Yeah.
And actually all of them did. I mean, I feel so terrible because everybody says, how can these things happen? Everybody must have known about it. But I interviewed Savile many times, Rolf Harris many times, and I knew Al Fayed as well. Never once suspected this sort of behaviour of them. So clearly they were able to keep almost dual personalities.
Well, they do. That's the grubby personality of an abuser, isn't it? That's exactly what they do. I mean, you know, I don't know if you know my story. I think you do. And where my children were sexually abused by a horrible monster who was the head teacher. And that is how they are. They parade in plain sight. And people may suspect. People did know. He silenced them. It was the same with Savile, Harris, Edwards, Stuart Hall. People did see things in the BBC. And what I would say to anybody now, even if this is in your private life and you feel that feeling in your gut, for goodness sake, concentrate, focus on it, write it down, do something with it, because silence allows these creeps to continue abusing, and they rely on that. And they're very often, I mean, I've been into prisons, I've met these creeps, and you would be amazed how many of them are quite good looking, very well educated, very well-mannered people. And you think, yeah, that's how it is. People don't see it coming. They don't, and so many people don't want to see it. But what also irritates me here is yet again the failure of the Metropolitan Police. And I really hope they are going to take themselves to the IOPC, because in 2015 there were allegations, and I don't think they did a deep enough dive, and he could have been arrested and charged back then. And I don't think their investigation was deep enough and wide enough, personally, and that needs looking into as well, because they have failed these women as well.
Marilyn, one of the things that really struck me from watching the documentary is that these girls and young women were not just random women that Al Fayed liked the look of. There was an amount of planning. These women were almost recruited for sexual reasons over a long period of time. One of the girls was only 15. I've got a daughter approaching that age. And the idea that you could send your child to work and that she's groomed for a purpose such as this is just shocking.
Is that any different to sending your child to school and the head teacher's one?
Indeed.
It's no different. This is how these creeps operate. And everybody said at the time, I've been doing this work for 20 years, and the blueprint, the model doesn't change. This is how they operate: power, control, and silence. He would have been like this for decades. It's how he would have operated. And actually, I think there must be, I know his son died and all of that, but there must be millions of pounds that the Al Fayed family have. And not just Harrods is seemingly trying to sort this out. And they need to act fast, because of their reputation is pretty much in tatters. Although it's not on their watch, it's still the name, isn't it? It's still the brand. But I think the Al Fayeds, if they had any conscience, should be absolutely coughing up some dosh to help these women. It's outrageous. I mean, well done, Natasha. I mean, do you know what? I couldn't bring myself to watch the documentary, because I do this every single day, and you have to guard yourself and your own mental well-being. Because I covered the Hugh Edwards thing on many programs this week, and I've had 14 disclosures, all of which have now gone to the police, and this is what's going to happen here as well.
Yes,
and it won't just be the people. It won't just be the people that Fayed has abused. It's other people out there who are listening today who are saying, "My goodness, I was sexually abused." This is 2024. You need to come forward. You need to come forward, because that's where your healing starts, the moment you speak out. And it's the hardest thing to do. But once you've crossed that barrier, you can't believe the emails I got after covering Hugh Edwards. I mean, I was inundated. My own work that I do with training, I've had to put that on the back burner for a bit, because I am never immune to the stories of anyone that's been harmed, because we all have different sensitivities, and it impacts us in very different ways. Some people are more resilient, and that plays a big part. Your resilience is a life skill, and your level of resilience is what actually I think also gets you through to some extent. And being believed, it's just awful. How these people operate is just awful. But my heart goes out to every single one of them.
Yeah, and there'll be more. There will be more. We'll have to leave it there.
Hundreds.
Always good to talk to you, because you really know what you're talking about. Thank you so much for joining us. I know.
Thank you, and lovely to see you, Miriam.
And you, lovely to see you.
Thank you so much. I've got to read this out. This is Harrods' statement. They say the Harrods of today is a very different organisation to the one owned and controlled by Mohamed Al Fayed between 1985 and 2010. It is one that seeks to put the welfare of our employees at the heart of everything we do. You know, it was funny because being a so-called celebrity in that era, if you went to Harrods shopping, you were spotted immediately. And they always used to say, either Mohamed or one of his people is always watching to see who's in. And they would send down a flunky to offer you a cup of tea upstairs, or, help you with your personal shopping or whatever. You'd be spotted straight away. Wow. And you always took it as a compliment.
Yes, yeah.
But now we hear, and it made me chilled when I heard on that documentary, that he was watching not only to see if there was a celebrity he could make a fuss of, but he was watching just to see if he fancied a
Any
girl
of the
who'd
staff.
walked in through the door. And he did that with the 15-year-old, didn't he?
With
He
these
liked
two
the look of
lives.
her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely
And that was
chilling.
chilling to
Yeah,
hear.
absolutely.
Anyway,